My daughter told me to sell my house and move into senior living. She thought I would sign it over to her name without a second thought. I agreed, but instead, I sold it to someone else. When the new owner walked in with the papers, my daughter screamed, "This can't be real!" She never expected who I sold it to. Before I tell you the full story, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. My name is Helen Matthews, and I am 67 years old. I live in the home where my late husband and I built our life together. Every corner holds a memory. His laughter while fixing the leaky sink, our family dinners around the wooden table, and the nights we spent sitting on the porch watching the stars. To me, this house isn't just walls and furniture. It is my history, my comfort, and my last real tie to the life we shared. For the past few years, I have lived here alone. My husband passed, and though my health is not what it once was, I manage fine. I spend mornings tending my garden, afternoons baking bread, and evenings knitting or reading. I am not wealthy, but I am content. What fills me with the most joy is the time I spend with my grandson, Ethan. At 17, he is full of energy, but he always finds time for me. He comes by after school, tells me about his classes, and often says, "Grandma, this house feels more like home than anywhere else." His kindness makes me feel valued in a way few others do. My daughter, Caroline, is different. At 39, she is ambitious and practical, but she has a sharp tongue and little patience for me. She visits often, not out of love, but to remind me of what she thinks I should be doing. Her favorite line is, "Mom, this house is too much for you. You need to downsize and move into senior living." She says it as if she is caring, but I can hear the impatience in her voice. Her husband, Eric, never argues with her. He nods along, always quiet, always agreeing. And while Caroline pressures me, I can see the eagerness in his eyes when the topic of the house comes up. They do not see my home as the place where I raised a family. To them, it is an asset, a prize waiting to be claimed. I began to notice how their conversations shifted. Caroline started bringing brochures for senior communities, sliding them across the table like it was already decided. She would say, "Mom, you'll be safer there. You'll meet people your age. This house is too much work. Why hold on to it?" Each time she spoke, her words cut deeper, as though I had no right to choose what happened to the home I had spent decades building. One evening, as we ate dinner together, she spoke more directly than ever before. "Mom, let's make this simple. Sell the house, transfer the papers to me. Eric and I can handle it from there. You can finally relax." Her tone carried no warmth. It sounded less like advice and more like an order. I didn't respond right away. My fork hovered over my plate as I felt Ethan's eyes on me. When I looked at him, I saw the discomfort on his face. Later that evening, as Caroline went on talking, Ethan leaned close and whispered, "Grandma, don't let her push you. This is your house." His words stayed with me long after they left. For the first time, I let myself admit the truth. My daughter wasn't trying to help me. She was trying to take from me. And I knew I had to decide whether to stay quiet or finally protect what was mine. The weeks after that dinner felt heavier than usual. Caroline's visits became more frequent, and with each one came another reminder that she thought my time in this house was over. She no longer disguised her intentions with soft words. Instead, she spoke like it was already decided. One afternoon, she walked in carrying a glossy brochure and dropped it onto the kitchen table. "Look at this, Mom," she said, flipping it open to a page with smiling seniors gathered around a piano. "They have activities every day, medical staff on site, and best of all, you won't have to worry about the upkeep of this big old house." I glanced at the page, but said nothing. Caroline tapped the photo with her manicured finger. "It's perfect. You'll thank me once you're settled in." Her husband, Eric, leaned against the counter, sipping coffee. He didn't say much, but I noticed the way his eyes scanned the kitchen walls and cabinets, almost as if he were already picturing changes he and Caroline would make once the house was theirs. That evening, as I was washing dishes, I overheard them speaking in the hallway. Caroline's voice was sharp but excited. "Once she signs the house over, we'll finally have the money to put down on that new place. It'll be a quick sale. The market is hot right now." Eric chuckled softly. "She'll cave. She trusts you. Just keep pressing." I froze, a plate still in my hands. Their words hit me harder than anything they had said before. This wasn't about my well-being. It wasn't about safety or comfort. It was about money, about using me to get something they wanted. That night, I walked slowly through each room of my house. My husband's old armchair still sat in the living room by the fireplace. The garden he had planted years ago was in full bloom outside the window. The photos of birthdays, graduations, and holidays still lined the hallway. Each room was alive with memories, and yet my own daughter saw none of that. To her, this house was a payday. The next morning, Caroline showed up again, this time with papers in a neat folder. She slid them across the table. "All you need to do is sign here, Mom," she said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "This makes the transfer official. I'll handle the rest." I stared at the papers, my stomach twisting. She was expecting me to give away the only thing I had left of my husband, the foundation of our family, as if it meant nothing. Ethan happened to walk in just then, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He noticed the folder and frowned. "What's that?" "Just paperwork," Caroline said quickly. "Something your grandma needs to sign." Ethan didn't look convinced. Later, when we were alone, he sat beside me on the porch. "Grandma," he said quietly, "don't do it. Mom doesn't care about this house the way you do. She talks about it like it's just money. But to you, it's home." I felt tears prick my eyes. "She's my daughter, Ethan. I want to believe she has my best interest at heart." Ethan shook his head firmly. "You've always taken care of her. Now she should be taking care of you. But she's not. Please don't let her take this from you." His words gave me strength. For the first time, I stopped doubting myself. I realized he was right. Caroline wasn't protecting me. She was trying to strip me of my dignity, one signature at a time. The pressure only grew over the next few days. Caroline called constantly, her voice sharp, whenever I didn't give her the answer she wanted. "Mom, you're being stubborn," she snapped on one call. "Why are you clinging to an old house? You're not thinking clearly." I stayed silent, but inside, I was no longer wavering. I knew the truth now. Signing those papers wouldn't be giving her a gift. It would be surrendering everything I had worked for, everything my husband and I had built. And I decided, in that moment, that if she thought I was weak, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. The night after Caroline pushed the papers across the table, I sat alone in the living room with the folder still resting beside me. I hadn't signed it, of course, but the weight of her expectation pressed down like a stone. I kept thinking about Ethan's words on the porch. "Don't let her take this from you." That phrase echoed in my mind until it no longer sounded like advice from a grandson. It sounded like a challenge to myself. For most of my life, I had been a giver. I gave my children my time, my energy, my love, and every ounce of myself to raise them well. After my husband passed, I tried to give even more, believing that selflessness was the only way to keep peace. But sitting there with Caroline's folder on the coffee table, I realized there was nothing peaceful about letting someone take advantage of me. The next morning, I called my younger sister, Margaret. She lived in a nearby town, and though we had always been close, I hadn't told her much about the pressure Caroline was putting on me. As soon as I explained, Margaret's voice came through the line, strong and steady. "Helen, don't you dare let her bully you into signing anything. That house is yours. If she doesn't respect that, you need to protect yourself." I hesitated. "She's my daughter, Margaret. I don't want to drive her away." Margaret sighed, her voice softening. "Helen, you're not driving her away. She's pushing you out. There's a difference. But you still have choices. You're not powerless." Her words planted a seed of resolve. For the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't cornered. That afternoon, Margaret came to visit. We sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea while the afternoon light spilled across the counter. She looked me straight in the eyes. "If she thinks you're going to hand this house to her, prove her wrong. Sell it to someone who values you, not someone who uses you." At first, the idea startled me. Selling my home was something Caroline had been pressing for, but selling it on my terms, choosing who would take it, and making sure it stayed out of her greedy hands, suddenly made sense. We contacted a lawyer that week. He walked us through my rights, the paperwork, and the process. Everything would be legal, binding, and completely within my control. Caroline couldn't undo it once it was done. The thought gave me a sense of calm I hadn't felt in years. As we prepared, I continued to play along with Caroline. I let her believe she was winning. Whenever she brought up the house, I nodded quietly and said things like, "Maybe you're right. Maybe it's time I let go." Each time I said it, her face lit up with smug satisfaction. I could see her already counting the money in her mind, already picturing how she and Eric would flip the house and move on to something bigger. One evening, she even bragged in front of me. "Once this house is in my name, Eric and I are going to remodel the kitchen, tear out that old wallpaper, and put it back on the market within a month. It'll sell fast. We'll make a fortune." I kept my face calm, but inside, I was boiling. My home, the place where I had raised her, where her father and I had built every memory, was nothing but a quick profit to her. That was the moment I knew I was doing the right thing. Meanwhile, Ethan continued to visit me after school. I didn't tell him about the plan, but I think he sensed something was happening. One afternoon, as he helped me weed the garden, he said quietly, "Grandma, I hope you don't give in. You're stronger than Mom thinks you are." I smiled, kissed his forehead, and said, "You'll see soon enough." Finally, the day came to sign the official paper. Margaret stood beside me in the lawyer's office as I put pen to paper, transferring the house not to Caroline, but to her. It was the most freeing moment of my life. Margaret hugged me afterward and whispered, "You've taken back your power, Helen. She'll never see it coming." On the drive home, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. Sadness because I knew this would wound my daughter, and relief because I had finally chosen myself after years of being overlooked. As I walked through the house one last time, I touched the walls, the pictures, and the furniture, letting the memories wash over me. But this time, I didn't feel like I was losing them. I felt like I was protecting them from being desecrated by greed. The stage was set. Caroline believed she was about to take possession of the house she had treated like her inheritance. But soon, she would learn the truth, and the look on her face, when she realized her plan had failed, would be something I would never forget. The day of the signing came, and Caroline walked into my house as if she already owned it. She wore her confidence like a crown, her heels clicking across the wooden floor while Eric followed behind her with his usual smirk. She carried herself with such authority that for a moment, if I hadn't known better, I might have believed the house already belonged to her. She placed a hand on the back of a chair and smiled at me. "Mom, I'm glad you finally came around to reason. This is going to be the best thing for everyone. Trust me, you'll thank me once you're in senior living." I kept my expression calm, nodding as though I agreed. "I'm glad you're here, Caroline. Today will certainly be a turning point." Caroline pulled out the folder she had been pestering me with for weeks. She flipped it open, sliding the papers across the table with a flourish. "All you need to do is sign, and we'll handle the rest. Eric and I have it all figured out. We'll fix the place up, sell it, and finally get the new home we've been dreaming of." Ethan, who had insisted on being present, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. His face was tight, but he stayed quiet. I glanced at the papers, but didn't reach for the pen. Instead, I folded my hands and said, "There's one thing you should know before we go any further." Caroline raised an eyebrow, her tone sharp. "What is it now, Mom? Don't tell me you're having second thoughts." I took a deep breath. "Number? I'm not having second thoughts. The papers have already been signed, but not the ones you think." For a moment, she looked confused. Then the front door opened, and in walked Margaret, holding a manila envelope in her hands. She gave me a reassuring smile before handing it to the lawyer standing in the corner. Caroline's jaw dropped. "What is she doing here?" The lawyer cleared his throat and spoke with a steady voice. "Mrs. Matthews, your mother has already executed a legal transfer of this property. The new owner is standing right here, Margaret Lewis." The room went silent. Caroline blinked rapidly, her face turning red. "What? That's impossible. She was supposed to transfer it to me." Margaret stepped forward, her tone calm but firm. "Helen chose me. She wanted her home to stay with someone who respects her, and the memories inside these walls. I promised her it would never be treated like a paycheck." Caroline's voice rose, cracking with fury. "This can't be real. You tricked me, Mom. You lied to me." I stood, my voice steady but strong. "No, Caroline, I protected myself. For weeks, you pressured me, dismissed me, told me what I should do with my life. I overheard you and Eric planning to flip this house for profit, without a single thought of what it meant to me. That's when I realized you didn't care about my comfort. You only cared about the money. So yes, I sold the house, but I sold it to someone who values me, not someone who sees me as a burden. Ethan leaned forward, his voice trembling but clear. Mom, Grandma's right. You didn't want this house for her. You wanted it for yourself. You've been treating her like she doesn't matter. Caroline turned to him, her face twisted with shock. Ethan, how dare you take her side? But Ethan cut her off, his voice shaking with emotion. I'm not taking sides. I'm telling the truth. Grandma is the only one who's ever made this house feel like home. You just wanted to cash it out. Caroline's mouth opened, but no words came. For once, she was speechless. Eric muttered under his breath, "This is a nightmare," running a hand over his face. He looked at Caroline, but offered no defense. I took a step closer to my daughter, meeting her eyes. I love you, Caroline. You are my child, but love doesn't mean handing over my life's work for you to squander. Respect has to go both ways, and you showed me none. This house was never yours to take. Her hands trembled as she snatched up the folder she had brought, her face burning with humiliation. You'll regret this, she hissed, her voice breaking. I shook my head. Number? For the first time in years, I don't regret a thing. Caroline stormed toward the door, Eric following quietly behind. Ethan stayed where he was, his eyes shining with pride. He stood and wrapped his arms around. Grandma, I'm so glad you did this. You showed her you're stronger than she ever thought. I held him close, tears stinging. I had to, Ethan, not just for me, but for you too, so you'd know it's never too late to stand up for yourself. As Margaret placed her hand on my shoulder, the tension in the room finally lifted. The house that Caroline thought she'd claim with a smirk and a signature had become the stage of her greatest defeat. And for me, it became the moment I reclaimed my dignity, my voice, my future. After Caroline stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind, a silence filled the room. It wasn't an uneasy silence. It was the kind that comes when a heavy weight is finally, for the first time in months, maybe even years, I felt like I could breathe again. The fear, the guilt, the constant pressure of being treated like a burden, all of it was gone. I looked at Margaret and Ethan, and in their faces I saw not judgment or disappointment, but pride. In the days that followed, Caroline kept her distance. She sent angry texts at first, accusing me of betrayal, saying things like, "You're my mother. You owed me this. And I can't believe you would choose your sister over your own daughter." Each message stung, but the pain was softened by the clarity I now carried inside me. I had spent too many years believing love meant sacrifice without limits. Now I knew that true love, between parent and child, or any relationship, cannot survive without respect. Eric said nothing to me directly. I heard through the grapevine that he was furious, not because of what had happened between Caroline and me, but because the house they thought was theirs had slipped through their fingers. I suppose he saw it as a lost opportunity, a broken deal, but that only confirmed what I already knew. His interest had never been in me or in family. It had been in the bricks, the money, and the profit. Ethan, on the other hand, became closer to me than ever. He visited often, helping me pack the few things I wanted to bring to my new place. We laughed together as we wrapped up old dishes, flipped through photo albums, and shared stories of his mother when she was young. She wasn't always like this, I told him gently. There was a time when she was sweet, playful, and kind. Ethan nodded, but I could see the sadness in his eyes. He loved his mother, but he also knew what she had become. When I finally moved into Margaret's house for a while, it felt like stepping into a new chapter of my life. Margaret had cleared a room for me, decorated it with fresh flowers, and made sure I felt at home. In her presence, I felt safe and respected. We cooked meals together, went for walks, and stayed up late talking the way sisters do. She reminded me that I wasn't alone, that family isn't just about blood, it's about love, loyalty, and showing up for each other when it matters most. The community began to notice the change in me too. Neighbors who had seen Caroline bossing me around, or heard her sharp tone when she visited, now smiled and said, "Helen, you look happier these days." And I was. I no longer lived under the shadow of being taken for granted. Caroline never apologized, and I stopped expecting her to. Perhaps one day she will look back and understand that what I did was not about revenge, it was about self-preservation. It was about drawing a line in the sand and saying, "This far, and no further." If that lesson ever takes root in her, I will welcome it. If not, I know I did what I had to do. Most importantly, I showed Ethan that it is never too late to stand up for yourself. He saw firsthand that age does not make you powerless, and that no one, not even family, has the right to strip you of your dignity. When he hugged me after the confrontation, I realized this lesson would stay with him forever. One day, when he faces his own challenges, I hope he will remember his grandmother's courage and find strength in it. Looking back now, I don't regret a single choice I made. I regret the years I stayed silent, but I do not regret the moment I finally spoke with action. My house was more than a building. It was the symbol of my life's work, my love, my sacrifices. And by choosing who it went to, I reclaimed not only my home, but also my sense of self-worth. To anyone who has ever been pushed aside, treated like they no longer matter, or made to feel like a burden, I want you to know this. You still have choices. You still have power. And sometimes, the greatest act of love for yourself is saying no to those who take you for granted. My daughter thought I was weak. She thought she could control me. But in the end, I showed her that respect isn't given away. It's earned. And I earned back my freedom by refusing to be erased. Before you go, if this story touched your heart, please subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I'd love to hear your story too.